Hari is a village merchant who works hard, diversifies his inventory, and wakes up early to catch the best foot traffic. Yet, no matter what he sells, he constantly finds himself walking home with empty pockets. The problem is the stall right next to his. Hari shares a property line with a deeply jealous neighbor who refuses to invent his own business ideas. Instead, he simply waits for Hari to source a product and sets up an identical operation. When Hari hauls in a cart of premium sweet pumpkins and begins attracting a crowd, the neighbor instantly procures his own pumpkins. The neighbor shouts louder, intercepts the foot traffic, and splits the customer base down the middle. The neighbor is even willing to take financial losses just to inflict damage. When Hari attempts to sell expensive, highly sought-after Hilsa fish for 500 rupees, the neighbor deliberately slashes his own price to 450. He openly mocks Hari while bleeding away every single buyer in the market. Standard economic competition usually involves two players fighting for the same customers. In this village, the neighbor has abandoned his own profit margins entirely, focusing solely on ensuring Hari's business is systematically dismantled. The Hilsa fish incident nearly breaks Hari. He is exhausted, out of capital, and ready to abandon his livelihood entirely rather than face another day of public humiliation. But Hari's wife sees the board differently. She realizes that fighting a price war against someone who doesn't care about profit margins is a mathematical dead end. Direct competition will never work against a copycat. She proposes taking their operation completely out of the public eye. If the neighbor's only skill is copying what he can see, they need to weaponize that toxic obsession by controlling exactly what he looks at. To defeat a relentless copycat, you have to feed them a flawed blueprint. Envision a project that looks highly profitable on the surface, but is structurally designed to trigger their own destruction. The trap starts with total silence. Hari abruptly disappears from the marketplace. Instead of selling goods, he hires a crew of local masons to begin working exclusively at his home. The masons construct a heavy, windowless brick enclosure directly on top of Hari's roof. There are no doors and no clear indication of what is happening inside the new structure. The reality is highly practical. Under the cover of darkness, Hari smuggles in a herd of young goats. He is raising livestock safely out of sight, protecting his investment from his rival's wandering eyes. But the neighbor has no idea about the goats. Hari's absence drives him into a state of deep paranoia. Because his entire business model relies on a template to mimic, having nothing to copy leaves him entirely paralyzed. The neighbor's business model is entirely reactive. Once the source of his ideas vanishes, he loses the ability to function. He stops tending his own stall, spending his hours pacing the perimeter of Hari's property and staring at the blank walls of the new construction. Unable to stand the suspense, the neighbor dispatches his own wife to infiltrate Hari's house. She drops by unannounced, pretending to make a friendly neighborhood visit while hunting for intelligence. The conversation is tense and measured. Right amidst their pleasantries, the neighbor's wife hears a faint, distinct sound echoing from the roof. A goat bleating. Hari's wife stays calm, manufacturing a story that explains the sound while hiding the truth. She claims they've sealed the roof to build an expansive tank, farming thousands of lucrative fish in a controlled environment. It is a brilliantly targeted piece of fiction. It aligns with the neighbor's existing obsession with the Hilsa fish market, dangling the promise of immediate, life-changing wealth right in front of his face. The neighbor doesn't stop to calculate the weight of the water or the strength of his beams. The story of the rooftop fish tank feels true to him because it promises a way to scale his previous success with the Hilsa fish into a permanent fortune. He begins construction immediately. Swallowing the bait whole, the neighbor rushes to copy the phantom business. He hauls immense amounts of brick up to his own roof, builds an imposing water tank, and begins pumping thousands of gallons of water into it. This cross-section schematic of a standard residential house demonstrates the physical reality of what he just did. Water weighs roughly 8 pounds per gallon. By pumping thousands of gallons onto a roof designed only to deflect rain, he introduces immense downward pressure, forcing the load-bearing walls outward. Meanwhile, Hari completely avoids this mechanical nightmare. Over the same time period, his goats safely reach full maturity, naturally gaining weight without applying hydraulic stress to the infrastructure. If you copy an action without understanding the underlying mechanics, the why behind the what, you guarantee structural failure. The story concludes with Hari making a triumphant return to the local market. He sells his fully grown secret goat herd and nets a 90,000 rupee windfall. Across the street, the physics equation finally resolves itself. The rotting plaster and soaked brick of the neighbor's house finally buckle under the immense weight, sending a surging flood directly into his living room. Standing in front of the rubble, the neighbor is left ruined. Hari reveals his substantial stack of cash, along with the ultimate humiliation. There were never any fish on the roof. A competitor can replicate a product, a price point, or a location. But the strategic logic driving those choices remains invisible to them, leaving the copycat to build their entire future on a foundation of stolen, misunderstood ideas.